Hey guys, it's Eshani, aka Total Makeup Junkie 101. So today I'm going to be doing a video all on the new Kat Von D Shade and Light Glimmer palette. This is the newest palette extension from Kat Von D, and it's an extension off of her Shade and Light series. You guys know she has her contour palette as well as her original Shade and Light eye palette. So today we're going to be talking all about the new Glimmer one. This palette retails for $49, just like all of her other Shade and Light palettes, and it actually comes in really nice packaging. The box that it comes in, it is stunning. It's got the gold like holographic Shade and Light written, and then like the top is like that gold holographic, and then on the back you see all the colors you get as well as the names. And then in terms of the palette itself, it is a plastic palette. I don't really know when Kat Von D switched over to this plastic version, but I do really like it. Shade and Light is raised off of the palette itself, which I will say I'm not super crazy about, only because it does make it a little bit more difficult to store or like stack your palettes. Kat Von D and then I down here are in a silver holographic, and then on the back of the palette you have a layout of the shades as well as all of the shade names written. In terms of sizing to the original Shade and Light eye palette, the one I have is in the original like cardboard packaging. I don't know if she repackaged this one into a plastic packaging as well, but the size looks really similar. The cardboard might be just a little bit thicker potentially, but not by very much. The palette just snaps shut, and then when you open it up you do get a really large mirror up at the top, and then you get all of your shades. Just like the original Shade and Light eye palette, you get 12 different colors that are kind of clustered into quads. I will say that these three colors up here are supposed to be more of like the shades that you would use more often, so that's why you have more product. Now before we talk about the texture and pigmentation of this palette, let's go ahead and jump right into full palette swatches so you can see the colors against my skin tone. So here is the entire Kat Von D Shade and Light Glimmer palette swatched. From left to right, the shades we have are Porcelain, Dusk, Dune, Copper, Bronze, Sterling, Cinder, Onyx, Glacier, Rust, Jasper, and Quartz. As you guys can probably tell, even though all of the shades in this palette are shimmery, as you would expect, it's called a Glimmer palette, the texture and the amount of shimmer or glitter does vary in every color. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, when I got this palette in the mail, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I basically just expected a shimmery neutral palette. I'll show you guys a direct side-by-side next to the original Shade and Light eye palette shortly, but I want to talk about the texture of these shadows first. There's varying degrees of shimmer or glitter in each of these colors, and depending on the amount of shimmer you have really does depend on the texture. So let's start off with the least shimmery shades, which I would say are the top three large pans. These are definitely more of a satin finish. They definitely do come across with a little bit of a sheen, but they're not overly metallic. They're not chunky at all. These three shades, which are more of a satin finish, are really easy to use. They don't kick up too much powder. They're easy to use with fluffy brushes or stiff flat brushes. I've had no issues with those shades. Now moving a step up, there's also like a metallic finish in this palette, which once again doesn't have any actual glitter specks. The metallics would be this color, and this color. Now those three colors in particular are fairly metallic. Once again, really smooth, easy to use. They don't kick up a lot of powder. Those three shades I really love packing all over my eyelid because they do give a pretty metallic finish. They're not like a foiled shadow though. You know the way like a Makeup Geek foiled shadow or like a Natasha Denona foiled shadow, how they look like liquid metal on the eyes? Those colors will not give you the liquid metal look, but they are a really nice true metallic powder shadow. Then we have some shades which are really chunky glittery. This one, and the one over here on the end. Now those shades do have very, very chunky glitter. Now, with the exception of this color right here, like this one, and this one, also have a fairly sheer base color to them. I would recommend using those as layering shadows. Layer it over another base color because they don't really have a lot of strong pigmentation. Those are also shades I would highly recommend using some sort of glitter glue with, like the Too Faced glitter glue or some type of sticky primer, because they're kind of flaky. Once you get them on the eye, I haven't noticed them falling throughout the day, but as long as I use a sticky primer and I really pack them on, preferably with a stiff flat brush or just using my fingers, I really just pat them. They do look really beautiful, but they are a little bit more work. The closest formula I can think of to those would be something like the Urban Decay Moon Dust shadows, but to be perfectly honest, I prefer the Urban Decay Moon Dust because most of the Moon Dust colors have like an iridescence or a duochrome or just a really, really unique effect, whereas these colors are pretty just flat shades. Like there's a golden, kind of a silvery white, and then like a peachy gold, and they don't really have any sort of duochrome to them or any sort of unique shift, so I don't particularly feel like the effort to make those go on the eyes is necessarily worth it, just for me personally. And then we have a couple of shades like this one and this one, which I would say are a kind of metallic shimmery base with little chunks of glitter. The black has little silver chunks, this brown has little gold chunks of glitter. Those glitter chunks don't really transfer onto the eyes very much, especially if you use those and then take a big fluffy brush to start blending it. The glitter chunks are gonna basically blend away. I'm honestly not a huge fan of those shades or shades like that. I just don't like glitter in shadows that doesn't translate over to the eyes. Okay, so now let me go ahead and do a quick side-by-side of the original Shade and Light eye palette next to the Shade and Light Glimmer. So here we have the Shade and Light Glimmer palette on the top and then the original Shade and Light palette on the bottom. You can see that the original Shade and Light eye palette is all matte, whereas the Glimmer all does have some sort of shimmer. The shades do coordinate fairly well from the old palette to the new palette. Obviously, the Shade and Light Glimmer palette is not necessarily a standalone palette. I would highly recommend picking up some sort of a neutral matte palette, whether it be the Shade and Light eye palette or whether it be something like the Viseart Neutral Matte palette or just some other neutral matte palette to really help bring together looks that you can do with this Glimmer palette. Now, you guys know I'm a really, really big fan of Kat Von D makeup, especially her palettes. I feel like she always puts a lot of creativity into the palettes and I love her designs, and overall I'm usually very, very content with my Kat Von D purchases. I do have to say that this is probably one that I personally could have lived without. Not because it's a bad palette. I mean, if you are looking for a shimmery neutral palette, I mean, this is fine, but I don't feel like any of the colors are very unique. The chunky glittery shadows just aren't my personal taste or favorite, and I honestly just don't really see myself reaching for this palette a whole lot. That's really unfortunate to say because, like I said, I love Kat Von D palettes overall, but I just have to be honest, I don't hate it, but I also don't really love it that much. So that's just my honest opinion on it. So now just for a couple of little housekeeping things. First off, this palette is made in Canada. 6 of these pans down here has 1 gram of product. 3 of these pans has 1.5 grams of product, and then these 3 pans up here at the top have 2.2 grams of product. I don't really know within these 9 pans which 3 have the 1.5 grams and which 6 have the 1 gram, but that's just the breakdown that we're given on the back of the palette. So if you multiply all of that out, that means that you're getting 17.1 grams of product in this palette total, and then if you divide that by the 49 $49 that you're gonna pay for this palette. That means that you are paying $2.87 per gram, which is fairly good. It is a high-end price, but it's not necessarily a luxury price. If this palette appeals to you and you like the idea of having just a full palette of shimmery neutrals, you might really enjoy this. But if you already have a lot of other eyeshadow palettes, do I think this is unique or a must-have? Definitely not. So there we have it. Those are my thoughts on the new Kat Von D Shade and Light Glimmer palette. Thank you guys so much for watching. In case you guys didn't know yet, I did start my own makeup line called Rani Cosmetics. We have 6 lipsticks and 6 liquid lipsticks, and you guys can shop through the link right up there. I will also go ahead and put a subscribe link to my channel right down there for you. But that is everything. Thank you guys again so much for watching, supporting, and subscribing, and I will talk to you guys in my next video on Monday. I'll see you then. Bye!